Yeah, welcome back to Think Tech. I'm Jay Fidell. This is the 10 o'clock block here on a given Monday, and we're talking about the middle way. And more specifically, we're talking about cross-cultural competence, part two, because Chang Wang has already started part one with Russell Yu last time. Russell can't be here with us today, but we're going to continue the conversation with Chang. What do we mean by cross-cultural competence? And is it a two-way street, Chang?
Exactly. It is a two-way street. So cross-cultural competence, there are multiple layers in it. Last episode, we believe we discussed we don't know what we don't know. And so if you go to another country, you simply don't know what you don't know. I still remember 10 years ago when I was in a senior executive's office, he sent me to China for a task to do an investigation. And it was a 30 minutes appointment, and I prepared a lot of materials, try to give the executive a briefing to tell him my plan to do the investigation. It was a due diligence investigation and also business development opportunity. And as soon as I walked into his office, he began to give me a lecture on China. And I have a tremendous respect to the executive, and he's not my supervisor, but just another executive who happened to have a task for me. He's never been to China, doesn't speak Chinese, doesn't have a Chinese friend. He read news on Wall Street Journal and listened to program on Fox News, and he had a lot of ideas about China. So he basically gave me 30 minutes lecture on China. And that is, example of what we say we don't know what we don't know. And as you said, the cross-cultural competence is two-way street. And there another layer of that is as an ethnic minority in the United States. You look at me, you said this guy was born in Beijing, went to school in China, came to the United States 20 years ago. He must knew both cultures, and I have some automatic credibility when I talk to other person in the United States. I always feel very much overestimated and overrated because I don't know a lot of things, and I know I don't know, and there are certain things I don't know. For example, when I grew up in China in 1980s, we all Chinese understood America from Hollywood movies, soap opera, and sitcoms. I'm not sure even these even ring a bell to you. The Growing Pain. Remember that show? It's about a mid-class family in a suburb United States. It was a hit show in China in 1980s. So in our impression in 1980s grew up with the entire generation was American people. Every single one of them is courageous. Every single one of them is humorous, and they simply don't know how to lie. And so when I came to the United States after several years, I began to realize, oh my, that America, that American, I knew from the TV show and from the books, might not be everybody here. And but not until 2016 and getting in the past few years, I got more and more confused. I look at people like on the on the on the TV and in the news, people, I have to say that Matt Gantz, people like that, Jim Jordan, Josh Hawley, and where these people come from? Are they really Americans? This is definitely not the American I knew. It so sounds like a character in a movie, but not real. Because real America is you look at President Biden, you look at Vice President Kamala Harris, you look at the you know the politicians, the intellectuals. You said, oh, these people have different opinions and they argue, they debate, but at the end of the day, they have fundamental human decency. But then you look at some other phenomena, you got very confused. So, in summary, I'm not very cross-culturally competent. So that's another layer, and I
But let
want
me
to
ask you a
confess
question
to you.
that occurred to me when I was in law school. I said to myself, why do they want me to read all these cases? Hundreds and hundreds of cases. Why do they want me to read that? And what is the benefit, the takeaway from all of these cases? Cases in tort, cases in contract, cases in criminal law. Why? And of course, they had their reasons. They wanted me to pass the bar exam and be a good lawyer and all that. But on a personal level, those cases are real stories. They're not made up in Hollywood. They're not made up on a TV stage. They're actual people from various cultural backgrounds doing their thing. And if you read those hundreds of cases, you'll see what the U.S. is really about, what it's been about, and what it is about today. And in some ways, it's better than the Hollywood version, and in some ways, it's worse. It's the reality. Don't you agree? You went to law school, you know exactly what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, Jay, and I can share with you my professor's, uh, comment regarding reading the case laws. My contract professor, before the final exam, when I was a 1L, and he told us, I don't expect you can memorize UCC. I don't expect you can memorize all these black letter laws. But here's the bottom line: you read the question, and you can't remember the rule, you can't remember the law. What do? You just follow your common sense, and you're going to look at this same rule also apply to torts, both contracts and torts. What outcome would be the fair outcome? Would be fair if you just follow that principle and you just go ahead and make up rules, okay, and you will reach the right conclusion. So that is the I think that I understand a little bit what the professor tried to tell me. uh, Use common sense. United States, America it should be a country of common sense. We should wear masks. We should take vaccines. But there's a problem for that. Even within the legal territory, within the law, there are a lot of things doesn't make sense. For example, constitutional law. My constitutional law professor, one of the my common law professor now is on President Biden's commission on the Supreme Court, and he's a brilliant common law professor. And he just blatantly told us, the Supreme Court is a self-conflicting institution. It doesn't. They don't follow their own precedent. That's really a problem, because that if you try to follow common sense in the Supreme constitutional law, you got a fail score. You can't pass because the constitutional law, unlike contracts and torts, they don't use common sense. And the same applies to our politics today. The common sense is, even the founding fathers ask you to tell you you have this liberty to bear arms, but the founding father doesn't mean you can have you can have a tank. You cannot just go too beyond common sense and in the law. So sorry for the long answer, but your question is really uh, just bring me back all these sweet memories, people memories in law school.
Sweet memories in law school. You'd probably be the only one Nobody I know went to law school and loved it.
I honestly, I loved it.
Okay, all
I
right.
don't regret it. I think I don't really think. I'm not sure I have achieved thinking like a lawyer, but the legal education is just in this country is most conservative discipline for sure, because the goal of this legal education, a Juris Doctor, 3 years training is to reproduce some products and then to maintain the status quo and to reproduce its hierarchy. So it's very conservative, but also I think the legal training does train us a lot of things. They does a lot of things law school doesn't teach us, but they do teach us how to think in a very different way and to look at the issues and the human relations and the relationship between the government and the people from a pretty refreshed perspective, which other humanities discipline not cannot necessarily offer. I'm
Yes, I
fighting to
agree, and
offer that.
I think part of that is the case reading to understand the nature of the society. You can't be a lawyer in a given society without understanding the nature of that society, and that includes cross-cultural understanding. It includes diversity understanding. But let me go to the show we had with this rabbi in Jerusalem just a few minutes ago. He was talking about education and creativity in Israel. So why is that? It's notable how much creativity there is in Israel. And he said it's because you have to, because it's competitive, and Israel is a state where you have to do well, you have to excel. Just the way it's been since the independence of Israel in 1948, and that is seen right through the society. So nobody takes it lightly. Everybody takes it seriously, and this is a really important point for Israel. There's the whole culture there is you have to understand how the other guy thinks, which is the key, isn't it, to what we're
Mhm.
talking about? Cross-cultural competence, trying to understand how the other guy thinks. So how can we do that here? How is it done in China? How is it done in other countries too?
Your question, you also, I have to give you multiple answers for this question. So first of all, my simple answer to your question is empathy. Empathy is ability to put ourselves in other people's shoes, to understand how other people think and feel. I don't have that capability, and I'm still learning. I hope I can, improve myself in the next 10 years. But I know empathy is critically important in communication and in a collaboration. So again, then there's two prongs of empathy. Empathy, the first layer is we understand other people's uh, how other people feel and think. Then we can try to feel other people's pain and suffering. If you feel other people's pain and suffering, if you feel the refugees, the immigrants, the separated family in the south border, the abandoned dogs, the Little Rock Nine, the Kuramasu, and in term Japanese Americans, you won't do that things to those people and all these beings. You would be, uh, you wouldn't can feel the pain and the suffering. That's one layer. Another layer is once you put yourself in the shoes of other people's shoes, that's close to what you just mentioned, the rabbi in Tel Aviv. And I put myself in the shoes of Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. I understand, kind of understand why they say what they say and do what they do. And I'm horrified by their logic. I'm rant, if you're alone in this world. and do everything benefit yourself and your family and or your tribe. And it's a jungle. It's everything is a jungle rule. There's no benefit others. Everybody outside your own tribe and your family is potentially an enemy, should be terminated. That thinking lead to the Auschwitz, lead to the Cultural Revolution, and lead to all this genocide all over the world in the past 100 years. So that is two layers of empathy. So that is how do, and then get to the second part of my answer to your question. How do we do that? How do we do how do we achieve cross-cultural competence? The cross-cultural competence starts from how you deal with your neighbor and how you deal with different ethnic groups in our own society. In the past few months, we see this rise of anti-Asian crimes. And last month, I had the privilege attended a rally in St. Paul, Minnesota, called Stop Asian Hate Rally, and organized by my Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans. And there are more than 10 different ethnic groups attended this rally. At the end of the rally, all the representatives from the different minority groups was invited to speak in their mother tongue, to address the crowd. I just read a poem by a fantastic Chinese poet called Shi. Literary translation is finger. That is pen name. He wrote this poem in 1968. 1968, I'm sure you remember, Jay, was one of the darkest moments in American history. RFK was killed, Dr. Martin Luther King was killed, and by pure serendipity, 1968 was also a terrible year in China. Cultural Revolution started 2 years ago, and there was a lot of chaos and turmoil in the society, and a particularly hard time for intellectuals and educated people. But this poem was written in 1968 by a penniless author, and the title of that poem was "Believe in the Future." Believe in the future. If you believe in the future, even all the lies we couldn't see at the moment, and the we also recite this history. The history of the justice is long, but at the end of the day is bent toward justice. I'm not entirely sure how long it will take, but the fundamental difference I see between people like, uh, the radical, ideological people who propagate hate and cultural superiority versus the young people, the younger generation, and not the uh, the people educated class and the college students is whether or not they believe in the future. People get to if you listen to people like Peter Navarro, he and you listen to people attack Dr. Fauci, attack uh, science, you attack immigrants, you feel this deep sense of insecurity and the desperation. And again, back to my first level, I feel tremendous uh, empathy. I can feel the pain and the suffering. I know they are paranoid. They think that the United States is lost. They believe their cultural heritage is being destroyed by immigrants, by other ethnic minority groups, by Asians, by Latinos. But I can't agree with them because I think that is unnecessary pain and suffering they inflicted on themselves. Then you listen to the Parkland, kids. You listen to David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, these these gun control activists, even they endured so much, but from their voice, from their statement, you hear this tremendous confidence in Americans' future. They believe in a brighter future for the society, for uh, the environment, and even for the globe. So that's why I see that why I say we have to start from home and to how to deal with other people of other ethnic minority groups and people have different opinion. But again,
Well,
as I said, yes, go
as
ahead.
you said, we have to believe in the future. That's a reasonable thing, but the implied term is we have to believe in a better future, not a worse future.
True.
And you start there, and that really means you have to read and think and talk to people, including people close to you and maybe people further away from you, and engage. And as those cases in law school, try to understand the society comprehensively. It's a big country, it's a complex country. There are parts of it that are better than others, but we have to understand, the entire ocean of this country. But when I asked you before the show, and I think we had to spend a little time working on this, is and how can you know, resonate with, how can you empathize with somebody who is sworn to destroy you? How do you do that? You have no intention, no will, no interest in destroying or injuring him, but he has every intention of destroying or injuring you. So let's begin there. And then, of course, that question evolves into other more complex questions. So do you really want to know about his culture? Do you want to empathize with it? He's dedicated to try to hurt you. Why would you take that approach in that case?
Great question, Jay, and it's a tough question. I, I have I have no intention to understand the KKK or neo-Nazis, logic. I will try to learn and the history and try to uh, understand what they are trying to say. But definitely, I do not emphasize with them, and I do not feel sympathy with them. And that so to be honest, I believe that uh, they are people in this society. There's no way we can really communicate. We have to. There's the bottom line is education. You have to have attain certain framework of reference in order for us to communicate and collaborate. That is, I will try have to avoid these kind of people, but in the United States, it's difficult. I'm currently in St. Paul, Minnesota. We have a fantastic, state government. We have a meritocracy. We have very capable civil servants in the state, but they are a lot. They are people, and it's not a safe state. There are you hear Derek Chauvin trial, and it's ongoing. And George Floyd was killed a year ago, and then 13 miles from where he was killed, Dante Wright was killed. And then when Dante Wright was killed, it's approximately 12 miles from where Fidel Castillo was killed. And the Dante Wright was killed just 11 days into the Derek Chauvin trial. The whole thing is messed up. The whole thing just doesn't make any common sense. And you mix a taser from a handgun and as a 24 years police officer, all of this doesn't make any sense. And so, honest answer to you, I don't uh, I'm not capable of understand a neo-Nazi and the KKK. I know what they are trying to say, and I know why they are paranoid. I just and I completely gave up to try to persuade this group of people. And they're a large group. There are millions of them. To my surprise, before 2016, I thought there are like maybe less than 100. Maybe even less than that. People are real KKK and neo-Nazi, and can. But after 2016, I realized there are really a lot of people of them.
Some people
But for
feel
the
they're
people like
increasing.
you,
Some people feel they're increasing.
oh,
But let me go to another thing that has happened, and in my observation, during the Trump years. It's one thing to have anti-Asian hate or anti-Semitic hate or anti-African American hate. That's one thing, and so it's directed at you. It's directed at your life, and it jeopardizes you and threatens you. And so it's hard to deal with that. You want to do what you can to change it, but seems like that's very hard, very hard. But there's another thing that's happened, and I wonder your thoughts about this. During Trump, he was attacking other people, not you, not me, and not us individually, but other people. So he was attacking the Latinos coming across the border. He was attacking any number of groups in the country. Not you, not me, other people. He was attacking institutions like democracy, the rule of law, anti-corruption. He was engaging in corruption at every turn. He was lying to us. A fundamental necessity for a democracy is telling the truth. And he was lying to us on a huge scale every day. Now, that's not directly threatening. It's indirectly threatening. It's threatening the institutions which we rely on and which we feel are necessary for a better future. So how can you deal with that kind of different culture?
that's that's a profound question. To wind up to my initial response to you, that I'm not culturally competent. And why? But I'm in this process of learning. And when I first came to the United States, I thought the United States was perfect. Was is not paradise, but that is a role model for all the society in the world. And the founding fathers, they were genius. They designed this impeccable system, and as long as we just understand our individual roles in the society, everything will be okay. And only if all the societies in the world can learn from the United States, they will also prosper and thrive. Now I understand how wrong I was. The founding fathers were not. You probably know that a large number of them are slaveholders, and when they wrote "All men are created equal," definitely not including women and black people, and definitely not Asian as well. So, America is a process. It's a process that uh, everybody need to be aware. There's no old good time you can go back to. The the best yet to come. You have to build it. There was a professor Timothy Snyder, and he wrote a book, the on tyranny. And one lesson is very important for all of us, particularly during Trump years, and also relevant today, is don't rely on institution, and the institution rely on you. If you think there is a court, there's a Congress can we can fall back on, can rely on, and you will get to the whole society will get ourselves into big trouble. And we everybody need to contribute. Here's why I see the younger generation. I feel hope, and they know that the institution is unreliable, is unstable, and is fragile. So it's our job to start with ourselves, try to understand other people. Of course, as we said, if other people if other people really try to kill you, you understand them and you try to protect yourself.
One thing that strikes me is that you have to have a social compact. If there are two of us, we have to have a certain understanding to live together in a society that is peaceful and productive. If there are 330 million of us, likewise, we have to have an understanding, a social compact that keeps us together. And there are fundamental points to this social compact, or it won't work. One of the things, for example, is personal security. That's really important, and it's allowing people to have a certain amount of liberty. That's important, and so forth. You could identify these things, and of course, it's also not going tribal. It's having a national identity, if you will. Sometimes that goes too far, but the general idea is that people in the social compact make agreements on some things. Whether those agreements are expressed in a moral sense, which I think is the bottom line, or in a moral sense through institutions, one way or the other, which could, as you said, could fail, but you still have to go back to the moral principles on which we live. That's what we're talking about. We have to bring these, individual cultures into general understanding in order to achieve the social compact. And I suggest to you that we have lost ground. Some people think that it was better before. Other people think that it's going to be better in the future. Other people think it's a sine curve. An historic sine curve goes up and down, and sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But how can we achieve cross-cultural competence when we are arguably on a decline in terms of respecting the social compact?
Well, I agree with everything you just said. It's pretty profound. But just start with ourselves. There is a simple way to achieve cross-cultural competence and diversity and inclusion, and not to hate each other or try to kill each other, is to look at each individual as an individual and disregard their gender, race, religion, even political affiliation. And if you look at all these artificial category or label won't help us to understand others and won't help us to understand ourselves. For example, as a Chinese came to the United States, only after 5-6 years, suddenly I realized, oh, I look at the Jay, I don't see middle age and the white people. I see exactly the same people I knew in China. My best friend, father, and you even you speak different language, you are from different cultural background, but actually you are exactly the same type of person. Then after a while, you begin to group people in your own categories. For example, I group people who have a intellectual curiosity of useless information. I have this group of people. There are people in Italians, French, Canadian, Australian, Chinese, Americans in that group, and I have another group of people who uh, love to spend a whole summer vacationing with family, and they are different from different cultural background as well. So my point here is, so all these obvious and categories and labels by race, gender, national origin, and religion, political affiliation, completely useless for anybody to understand anybody else. Instead, we hope that people can realize that, I look at people like on Fox News. Oh, this is exactly the same guy in the propaganda office back home. Okay, even one speak Chinese, one speak English. Even one is white, one is Asian. Even one is male, one is female. One is this political party, one is another political party. But they are exactly the same person because they think alike, they speak alike, and they behave alike. Then I look at people like
No, I see what you're saying. We're almost out of
yes,
time, Chang, and I'm sorry we have to continue this. I hope there's a cross-cultural competence part 3 coming soon, but we have not gotten to the bottom of it. This discussion today suggests that we should not look at what divides us. We should look at what connects us and find common
true.
denominators across all cultures, because everybody really at the fundamental point is everybody really wants to lead a decent life. And so that's what we have to look at. Anyway, Chang Wang, cross-cultural competence here at the Middle Way. Thank you very much for this discussion. I look forward to a continuation.
Thank you, Jay. What a pleasure. Have a good
Aloha.
week.